Sorry, okay, so let's start. Magda Woźniak, I'm actually employed at the Polish Center of Mediterranean Archaeology of the University of Warsaw as archaeologist with a specialization in textiles. So my basic training is archaeology, and I worked in the field mainly in the Sudan, so on settlement sites from medieval period. And I also took part in some rescue campaigns in the Fourth Cataract region when we excavated cemeteries from the late antique period. 2006 was my first encounter with Sudan, and I discovered this Christian period there. So Christianity started in the middle of the 6th century, and the Christian kingdoms lasted there until the end of the 15th century. So it's like, yeah, very long medieval period. So I just show you here some paintings from the Faras Cathedral, which was the starting point of our knowledge and studies about Christian Nubia. It was discovered by a Polish mission in the 60s. And I think we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of this discovery. So just to give you the visual flavor of this art. And of course, besides all these biblical representations, the Nubians, medieval artists created also representations of kings, rulers, and also queens. So I started my PhD in 2006, and I got it in 2013. It took me several years. So I worked mainly on iconography on Nubian rulers, and I focused on the costume. So this is one of the best preserved murals. You can see the mother of Queen Marta, and it is dated to the late 10th century. And here it is painting, a drawing from a chapel. It's a very recent discovery from 2003 in a site called Banganarti, where the discovery of this painting and this construction of the ruler surrounded by apostles, protected by the archangel, it was something which completely changed our understanding and knowledge of Nubian art, and it also called for an update of our knowledge about how we identify those figures and how we understand the different attributes of authority and power. So my first encounter with textiles was not a direct one, because there I worked mainly on mural paintings. So I documented like around 40 paintings, and I mainly redraw. It was a very time-consuming process, but it also gave super results. So you realize that like at first sight it seems all the same, but then you realize there's really many details, and you can also reconstruct very precisely various garments worn by these figures. And at some point, when I saw all these patterned garments, which are really like an attribute, I can call it, of power in Nubia, a political attribute. Of course, I was interested. I was not the first, yes, to see some parallels in true textiles. And then I discovered, many interesting things. So first, that in archaeological evidence in the Sudan, we have very, very few garments, pattern garments. Then I discovered there are lots of similar patterns in many museums in Europe and beyond. But often they are devoid of context. And also I realized I do not really understand what a textile is, except the visual decoration. Well, I was not really understanding all these descriptions I was reading in catalogs. And also in my research, I discovered that in the Sudan, there are also many like common textiles, which bear not often decoration, or another type of decoration, which is mainly like bands, stripes, and sometimes small geometrical patterns. I discovered we have also a lot of textile tools and semi-projects, but this all goes far beyond my my doctoral dissertation. So once I finished my PhD, I embarked myself on training at the Center for Textile Research in Leiden, and I attended a textile intensive course, which was given by Gillian Vogelsang-Istrud, the director of the CTR. And it was like the really starting point of my work on textiles. I started to understand what it was, how it works in 3 dimensions. So it was a very basic course when we saw, like, from the raw material to spinning, through weaving, dyeing, we saw, like, yeah, it was a concentrated knowledge. And so starting with that, I worked on an application, and I got a Marie Curie co-fund grant dedicated to the study of Nubian textiles. And so I embarked on a very long trip to document unpublished, mainly textiles which were discovered in Sudan. I was mainly interested in the medieval production. So the collection is spread among many museums, because there are many foreign missions working in the Sudan. So British Museum. I worked also in Khartoum, where they have a lot of textiles which are not really studied. And I was there assisted by my colleague Barbara Chaya, who is a textile conservator. She also has a very great experience of textiles in Egypt and Sudan. So it was really, like, for my first trip, I was really happy to have her assistance, because when you start, you don't know even how to handle those pieces. So I traveled also. I was very, very happy to go to Toronto and also to Aswan in Egypt to document an unpublished collection of textiles from Jebel Ada, which was the last capital city of the kingdom of Makuria, one of these medieval kingdoms, where graves of high dignitaries were discovered. And so here I really found for the first time pattern textiles, which are all, of course, all silks or half silks, which were all imported textiles. And so the output of my research grant was the launching of a database, which is all open access. So you can find, so I gave you here the address of the project's website and the textile database. So it was, my idea was, because I'm an archaeologist and I have to train myself to understand textiles. So the idea was also to give some tips to archaeologists or people who want to, who are confronted with that material and don't know exactly what to do with that. So I just work on some, like, short tips about what are you, how a textile works, how are the information you can recover from the textile analysis. And of course, there are like 600 objects, both textiles and tools, documented so far. And I hope I can enrich this database with my forthcoming projects. So during this grant, I also had some training. So I learned about microscopic analysis. I learned also like more sophisticated, about more sophisticated textiles, especially for the silk. So far I did only the first session technique of the Sieta. And with this pandemic, I had to postpone the second session, but I hope I can complete it, because my knowledge in silks still needs to be improved. So an important thing is also that in the project, I collaborated also with chemists, with geologists, because I made some dye identification. We tested also strontium isotope analysis. So I also learned how to sample and the size and the weight of samples, etc. So it's a useful knowledge I can share also. So among things I would not expect, I also learned how to mount showcases, because it is so just for the pleasure to show you, because it was one of the most nice things in my project. So we set an exhibition. I think it was the first exhibition dedicated to textiles in the Sudan National Museum. It was in October 2019. So we selected with Barbara 4 textiles which could have been submitted to conservation, and Barbara did a wonderful job. So it was thanks to her wonderful work, we could have provide these textiles like a permanent conditions for a permanent exhibitions. So just this pieces here. So this is a pair of socks in a nail binding technique, and it was dyed with Isatis tinctoria. And it was recovered from a grave dated between the 9th and the 11th century. And the way she could have give it back, the form and the decoration, it's beautifully made decoration with green and golden crosses. So it was like one of the really big highlights of the exhibition. And here is a kilim from the 14th century, which also is unique so far in my knowledge, like an attestation, a testimony of the nomadic decoration. And so now, since 2020, I joined the institute where I work presently, and I work in the site of Old Dongola. So within the frame of a ERC grant called UMA, it is directed by Artur Oburski, the director of my institute. And so I work on textiles recovered from settlement areas. So as you can see, there are really scraps of textiles, but as Elsa stated it at the beginning of our session, Sudan offers great conditions, climatic and environmental conditions. So at least we can recover something. And I'm also interested not only in textiles, but also in textile tools. I'm interested to relate somehow, because usually what we have for the Sudan in the field of textiles is like we have very few publications, and usually tools are published in a small chapter and textiles part. And the idea for me is to understand how we can relate to study the distribution of both the textiles and the tools. And also I'm interested to document what were their main resources, both the animal fibers and the plant fibers. What was the part of imported textiles? So the period I'm working in this project is like from the 14th to the 19th century, and the levels we dig so far are dated from the 17th, 18th century. So it's very late material. It was not except Casri. We do not have many studies of these textiles, so it's ongoing research. And so I think that